Next guest is Thomas Martin. Thomas Martin, Executive Director, California Achieving a Better Life Experience, or CalABLE. Thomas led future operations and planning as chief of the Veterans Homes Division at CalVet, overseeing strategic planning for 8 facilities serving 2,300 veterans. His CalVet career includes roles as Assistant Deputy Secretary, a Chief of Veterans Home Operations following several appointments in the governor's office, a graduate of UC San Diego with degrees in political science and history. Thomas earned his master's in government with honors from CSU, Sacramento. He brings a unique perspective as both as a father of 2 children with autism spectrum disorder and as someone who has ASD himself. So without further ado, I present to you Thomas Martin. Sir, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. So I think everyone can agree that my resume is the least impressive of the three so far. So thank you for that. So hi everyone. My name is Thomas Martin. As he said, I'm the executive director for CalABLE. I have brown hair, a white shirt, a striped tie, and a blue jacket. Um, yeah, I'm really happy to be here. As Bobby mentioned, I have autism, and so do both of my kids, and that's why I am here. That's why I work for CalABLE. That's why I came over here, and that's why I'm part of the mission. So yeah. So and as a qualifier, I do have autism, so I'll just say that means two things. So one is I know an inordinate amount of information about dinosaurs. And the other thing is that I know I talk too fast sometimes. So please tell me if I'm going too fast. But yeah, so I have some slides that I'm gonna share with you folks. But before that, I'll just do a bit of a preface. So CalABLE is, first of all, it's great. It's a great program for empowering people to maximize their independence, and that's a good way to think about it. So it has great benefits for working adults with disabilities, for people who have difficulty working and receive public benefits, and for everyone in between. So if you have a disability, this is a vehicle for you to save for your future. Um, if a dependent of yours has a disability, this is a great way for you to support them. And if anyone else you know, whether that's a friend or a family member or a neighbor, someone you support through your work, like a client for your agency, complete stranger on the street, doesn't matter. If they have a disability, this is something that would be good to share with them as well. And if anyone I just mentioned receives state or federal benefits, this is a great way for them to save and keep those benefits in place because of some state and federal exceptions. So, yeah. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my slides. And one thing I'll mention is that there's kind of two. I think hopefully that looks okay. There's two main scenarios to think about as I go through this. So one is again is if you have a disability, this might be a good vehicle for you to kind of save for yourself. But also this could be a good way to support someone else if they have a disability, whether or not you have a disability. So, CalABLE. So again, everyone with a disability should know about CalABLE. It's a great program. It has huge benefits for everyone who is eligible, and we want to get that word out. So what is CalABLE? CalABLE is a tax advantage savings plan for people with disabilities. We are a state program. I am a state worker. I am in the treasurer's office. And this is designed to, again, this is designed to help people maximize their independence. It helps plan for the future, helps save for expenses, small or major. It can be used for day-to-day spending as well. on a variety of things, and it helps protect benefits in the process. So who is eligible for CalABLE? So you can open a CalABLE account at any age, but the disability has to have started before the age of 26. So I am uh, well beyond 26 and I feel it every day. But because my disability starts at birth, I can still have a CalABLE account. Um, so the disability has to meet Social Security Administration's criteria. And so that can either mean that the person with a disability um, receives or qualifies for SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, or SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. So that's one easy way to tell. If someone qualifies for that, if someone already receives that, that's an easy indicator that they're eligible as long as their disability started before the age of 26. But they don't, but the person with disability does not have to receive benefits. So I don't receive SSI, I don't receive SSDI. I am still eligible, however, because I can self-certify. So the Social Security Administration, this is all their rules. Social Security Administration has a list of compassionate allowances, and they have what they call the Blue Book listing, which is a list of diagnoses that make people eligible for various things, various programs. So if your disability is on that list, on either one of those two lists, then you'd be eligible for an ABLE account again, as long as the disability started before the age of 26. We recommend getting a signed letter from a physician, but you're not required to have one. We do have a form on our website that we can provide as well. So it's not something we would ever ask for or want. We recommend it only if there was ever if you ever got audited or something, just like you should save any tax document, it'd be good to have one on hand. But again, it's not a requirement. Um, and so those are the requirements for the disabilities. One thing I'll mention is that in 2026, the age of onset for your disability increases from the age of 26 to before the age of 46. So that begins in 2026, and that's change in federal law. And I know this presentation is kind of framed for state workers, but this is not exclusive to state workers. This is open for anyone with an eligible disability. So why does it matter? What do you get with a CalABLE account? Well, first of all, I think a lot of people can appreciate that having a disability can be very expensive. Um, there's the classic things that folks think about, things like healthcare costs. That's kind of the most straightforward expense to think about, but really there's a lot more that comes along with having a disability that can increase costs. So that can mean that you need accessible housing or a particular housing arrangement. You need adaptive equipment, or you or the person with disability might need assistive care, or any other things that could cost more than it would for someone without a disability. So, with my kids and I, we all have very specific diets, and those diets are not expensive. So, the cost of food is higher. We have when my kids has a service animal, we have extra security sensors on our doors at our house, so they know if one of our kids tries to leave. We have extra locks. We have all sorts of things that all they all cost money, that we've had to do, which is just kind of how it is for a lot of folks with a disability. So that's where CalABLE comes in. Again, there's two scenarios to think about. One is that CalABLE can help you save for yourself if you have a disability, or it can help you save for someone else. So, so first I'm going to play a video, and please let me know if the sound doesn't work. But this is a clip from one of our account holders, Miguel. who's he's a working adult with disability, and he's using the account to save for himself.
My name is Miguel. I'm a lifelong Californian. I live in Redondo Beach, and I'm an attorney. I have an inherited retinal disease called choroideremia. It's hard to say and it's hard to live with. I'm slowly losing my vision, but I am legally blind. Being disabled, I've realized, is very expensive. I'm a lawyer by trade, so I research things when I don't know the answer to something. And I found CalABLE. At that point, I was starting to learn about investing and saving, but I don't really know much about it. Child of immigrants, we save cash, and so stocks, things like that, an investment strategy, something that's, even with my education, was kind of outside of my area. And so with CalABLE, it feels like a little bit of handholding of learning that. And it allowed me to get an introduction to investing for my future while actually doing it and planning for disability expenses that were here and that would be coming in the future. The best feature is the self-determination that you are in charge of your own account. Oftentimes we have to hand over autonomy and self-determination in exchange for resources or assistance. And this is one of the few vehicles or resources that I've encountered where that compromise doesn't have to be made. Nosotros somos CalABLE.
Okay, so yeah, so as you heard in the clip, so Miguel is kind of saving for his own future, thinking about future expenses, and that's something that I think a lot of state workers with disabilities can keep in mind. So I have a CalABLE account, and that's kind of the position I'm in for my CalABLE account. So I'm using it for long-term savings, as kind of like an extra retirement account, or to save up for a house, anything like that. I can use that for. What's great is that the program allows for that extra flexibility. So you can think of it as like an alternative or a supplement to a retirement plan, like we all have through CalPERS, or like a separate 401k or something like that you might invest in. But you can withdraw without penalty, which is a great benefit too. And if you are receiving benefits like SSI, you can do so without affecting your eligibility, which I'll get into a little bit more in a bit. And so this is a state program. We are not out to to make money. We're not trying to make a big profit. So we try to keep our fees low. Our fees are competitive. And so that's one great benefit, that you wouldn't have the fees that you would have associated with other types of investment options or plans. But an even bigger benefit is that any earnings and interest are tax deductible. That's both state and federal taxes. So as long as you're using it for qualified expenditures, which I'll talk about in a bit, that's all tax deductible. And then the last thing, we have a range of professionally managed portfolios that we'll very briefly touch on in a moment. But it helps you, gives you the opportunity to be able to grow your wealth through those portfolios. So yeah, so these are the investment options. Not going to go through all this right now. It's mainly to show that there is a variety of options available. Whether it's just a straightforward savings plan that's based on interest, or something tied to the markets with a range of securities, stocks, and bonds. And just as a disclaimer, anything that's tied to the market, anything that's investment always carries risk. So, that's no different from any other investment plan that's out there. So that's some ways to think about, how to be able to save as a working adult with a disability, some ways to think about saving long term. So, but let me pivot to kind of the other scenario, which is using CalABLE to save for someone else. So here's a clip from another one of our ambassadors who's saving for his son.
My son's in elementary school. He loves jungle gyms and singing, and he's crazily physically active, and he's a great, happy little kid. My son has autism. He was diagnosed just before he turned 3 years old, and he's been in special education and getting disability services since. There was this presentation on this new program called CalABLE, which I'd never heard of before as a parent. And I was like, this is the best thing since sliced bread for disabled kids. And I've been telling people about it ever since. The most important thing for a parent of a disabled child to worry about is protecting their access to disability services. The thing about an ABLE account is it protects your child's access and eligibility for disability services, which would be devastating to lose if you didn't have them. The CalABLE account, it's a great savings vehicle, an investment vehicle that my child can access immediately. This is kind of step one for financial planning for my son. And it took, I think, 15 minutes or less to set it up. The best feature is the ability to ensure that my son will continue to be eligible for disability services when he's an adult. If you're eligible, you should be doing this today. We are CalABLE.
Okay, so again, that's kind of the other scenario. This is a vehicle by which you can save for someone else. In his case, it's a child. It could be another dependent, or it could just, again, it could be supporting someone else who isn't a dependent as well. You can open and manage an account on behalf of someone else. It's still their account. It's their funds. It's their money. It's in their name. But you can help them manage it if they need it. For whatever reason that might be. In his case, it's, he's saving for his child. His child obviously can't manage their own finances, with or without a disability. It's a child. So you can open it on their behalf. But that extends to adults as well. If there's an adult with a disability and they're either unable or uncomfortable managing their account, anything like that, it can be opened and or managed in support of them. So it's a great vehicle to be able to save for a child with a disability. And so that's the boat that I'm in. So, I have an account for myself. That's just for long-term savings. I also have an account for each of my kids. It is their account. And that is to build a nest egg for them. For at least one of my kids, college isn't likely in the future. So, whereas some parents would be thinking about a college savings account, for me, it's not really the best option. But what's great is I can effectively use it as a college savings account. And when they're adults, I could hand the keys to the account over to them. If they're able to take it over, they could use it for education, or they can use it for many other things that I'll walk through in a bit. But it's a way to build a nest egg for them. And so what's important about that is that I can build that nest egg without affecting their eligibility later down the line for public benefits. So, so a lot of folks, especially folks who are working kind of in the disability world within state government, you probably know about SSI and its limitations. So if you receive SSI, which is the main source of income for hundreds of thousands of Californians, millions of Americans. It's their main source of income particularly if they have a lifelong disability or no other assets to pull from, unable to work or unable to work full time. It is the main source of income for them. But if you receive SSI, you can't have more than $2,000 in your own name. If you have more than $2,000, you can risk losing those benefits. And so that can be really devastating for someone's independence if they can't have more than $2,000. Imagine you were in a scenario where you could not have $2,000 in your name. How would you plan for any major expenses? How would you, forget buying a house. How would you get an apartment? How could you get first and last month's rent for an apartment if you only had $2,000? And that had to be able to cover first and last month rent and pay for your bills and pay for any furniture, anything else that would come along while you're trying to move in. You just can't do it. $2,000 doesn't buy you a car. It doesn't pay for education. It doesn't really get you much of anything. And so that's where CalABLE comes in. So we have a federal exemption, so that someone with a CalABLE account can save up to $100,000 total without jeopardizing their SSI benefits. And so this is the way to do it. This is how. So I'm saving money in my kids' names. One or both of them are going to be on SSI when they're adults, and this is how I can help them with those larger expenses, help them prepare for those larger expenses, and also when they're adults, that they can continue to manage those expenses for things like an apartment. I want my kids to be as independent as they can be. Independence looks like different things for different people, but that's my goal for my kids, is that they would be able to live on their own with either fully independently or partially independently, and they can't do that without a CalABLE account. And so I mentioned before about opening an account for someone else. This is the list of eligible persons from Social Security Administration. It's pretty broad. It's basically anyone with some level of responsibility or support role for helping someone else. So I'm a parents on the list. Very easy. There's no documentation that CalABLE needs. If you create an account for someone else, you just indicate that you're their parent, and that's basically it. You indicate that you're authorized to run the account for them, and you're good to go. Okay, and then so I'll just very briefly touch on how the mechanics of how the account works. So I mentioned before that you can have up to $100,000 and maintain SSI benefits. And so here's a little bit more information on that. So anyone, regardless of their situation, they can save up to $18,000 into their account. That is kind of the main cap. The only exception for that are folks who work for an employer that doesn't contribute to their retirement plan. So, which is probably not the case for folks on this call, but otherwise, $18,000 is the limit of contributions each year into the account. So for someone receiving SSI, they can have up to $100,000 total, over multiple years, and still maintain their SSI benefits. There are other benefit programs that look at assets like CalFresh, and those state and federal ones are also exempt from those asset caps, as long as the money's in the CalABLE account. But again, SSI, you can have up to $100,000 without affecting SSI. If you don't receive SSI, like me, I don't receive SSI, I don't receive public benefits. I could contribute up to $529,000. I'm, however, a state worker, so that would be impressive. But maybe if I win the lottery, I can slowly save up to $529,000. And so if you try to contribute more than the $18,000 a year or more than the $529,000, it just wouldn't let you. So it would stop you, and I don't know, you should get an award or something if you do. So you can also get support from someone else into an account. So I mentioned before, I run my kids' account, so I can just transfer money in and out of their account as I need to. But also I have these gift pages that I set for my kids. So you can create a gift page, and it's a page that's just open for anybody. I can send it to friends, I can send it to family, I can send it to complete strangers and ask them to contribute to my kids' account. It's still subject to the $18,000. So regardless of where the money comes from, I could still only put $18,000 into their accounts each year. But it's a great way to guilt friends and family into giving money to your children, in my case. Yeah, it's a great way to support someone regardless of what their situation is, that you or anyone else could send money into someone's CalABLE account. And it doesn't count as income for their purposes. Meaning that program like SSI will also have like an income test. You can only make so much money and still collect SSI. a gift doesn't count as income for those purposes. It's not a resource. And so what can you spend it on? So the real important thing is this sentence up at the top. It's anything that's going to help the account holder maintain or improve their health, independence, or quality of life. That's the law. So that can be education, it can be housing, it can be apartment, it can be a bus pass, it can be a car, it can be gas. It can be a service dog, it can be adaptive equipment, it can be food, it can be a vacation, it can be anything that maintains or improves their health, independence, or quality of life is likely to be a qualified expense. The important thing to remember is that it needs to be for the benefit of the account holder. Remember, it is their money. So I have an account for my kid. For both my kids, I could use the account to pay for costs, today if I needed to, but it would have to be for their benefit. So if my oldest son has a service dog, if she had a vet bill, I could use my son's CalABLE account to pay for the vet bill because the service animal is for his benefit. And so that's the important thing to keep in mind. That sounds very broad, and it is supposed to be very, very broad. The goal is to let people decide for themselves how they want to spend their money, as long as it meets that rule. And speaking of spending, it's pretty easy to do. You can transfer money in and out of the account, just like you would like a bank account. You can also load a debit card, a prepaid debit card with money from the account. There's no fees. Those fees are covered by the program. But you can use that card. It's a Visa card. You can use it wherever you can use a Visa card. So I have an Able account for my Able card for myself. I can go use it, wherever. My kids aren't at that point yet, but when they're a little bit older, I'm going to want to help them understand financial literacy, and I'll get them both their own debit card in addition to the debit card that I have for them. So you can have two attached to an account. And so I could load it on their card. I can help them manage their spending. I could, put some rules on how it works and how much money's on it, that sort of thing. And they could go use it to buy whatever's going to help them. And also I could keep a card so I could pay for other expenses on their behalf from their account as well. So that applies if they're kids, but when they're adults, it could still be the same thing. And then last thing on this front, I mentioned before that we keep our fees low. We are a state program. I do not get paid commission. We are not trying to make money. But we do need to be able to support operations. So we do keep our fees low. So there is a $30 annual fee for an account. And depending on the investment options you selected, there's a small, percentage of a percentage annual fee on those funds. So this is an example. If you had $3,000 throughout a year, and let's say there were no earnings or anything in that year for whatever reason, you would expect to pay between $38 and $47, give or take, in fees for the account for the year. So it's relatively low, and then when you consider that that any earnings on the account are tax-free, both state and federal taxes, you can see why it's extra competitive. Okay, and then so hopefully this is the question you guys are asking at this point. How do you open an account? You go to the website. This is basically the main instructions. CalABLE.ca.gov. If you click on the open an account at the top, you can go through that process. It's similar to making like if you were to make a bank account or something like that. Same kind of information you'd be asked. It takes about 15 minutes. It's not too bad, I promise. But you can also go to the website to find more information about the program, about the benefits, about eligibility, all those things. And I'll add something to the chat as well before I drop off. But so you can go to the website and open an account that way. And again, it takes 15 minutes. So some things to keep in mind. Um, again, the account is owned by the person with a disability. So I opened CalABLE accounts for my kids. It is their account. It is their money. So it's about them. It's their asset. So that's something to keep in mind. Even if someone is managing account for someone else, it's still the person with the disabilities account. Each person can only have one ABLE account. Almost every state has an ABLE account program. I don't know what the remaining 3 or 4 are thinking, but everyone else does. But it's important to remember you can only have one regardless of, across all the states. So you couldn't have a CalABLE account in California and a stable account in Ohio, for example. But you don't have to be a resident of California to have an account, and you don't have to be a resident of California to manage an account, although presumably that's going to apply to the folks here. And then again, it can be opened by the person with a disability. I open my own account. It can also be opened by what we call the authorized legal representative, just someone who can run an account for them. So I open an account for my kids. So please open an account. Here is some our contact info. This is our general customer service center, 833 CalABLE. It's great. They're very friendly. They support I forgot how many, but it is in the triple digits the number of languages that they support. Again, it's meant to be easy to use, meant to be accessible. So you can feel free to give them a call. We also have customer support form on the website there. And here's the QR code that you could use to sign up for emails, newsletters, or other information on the program. And I know I talk a lot. I would like to continue doing so for whoever, for any of you out there. So we can do a presentation for your teams. What's great about SDAC is besides the great presentation you guys do, it also means that I'm getting connected to all the separate DACs out in the world. We will do a presentation for your staff. We will do a presentation for 100 staff. I will do a presentation for one person. It's a great program. We want to spread the word, and we will do the maximum amount you will allow us to do to get the information to your staff, or also any stakeholders that are out in your world, any clients supported by your program, stakeholder organizations that you work with through your jobs. We'll work with them. We will talk to them. We will give a presentation. We will give materials. We have brochures. We have fact sheets. We will add to your newsletters. I just tell me what you want and I will do it. You can also, so we have our email. That's our email address for scheduling something there. calable@treasurer.ca.gov. I will include this in the chat so you don't have to write this down. Or you can also email me. That's me. That's my title. thomasmartin@treasurer.ca.gov. So yeah, that was a lot of information. So you don't necessarily have to remember all of that. The important thing to remember is it's awesome, and that anyone with a disability should be thinking about it. So with that, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions folks have. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Bobby.
Thank you, Thomas. This is, again, very informative. One quick question that comes to my mind, you mentioned that when you pay for items, they're tax deductible. So is it also, or did I get that wrong, first of all? And if I didn't, my follow-up would be, is it also tax deductible? Is it pre-tax income, the money that you put into CalABLE, or is it post-tax?
So it is post-tax. So the tax-free part comes in on the earnings in the account, right? So if you were to save, if you get interest from a certificate or my my bank account, my checking account from the credit union. The interest and the earnings you get from that. Normally, you get state and federal taxes on it. And so, but with anything you earn in the CalABLE account, that's free from taxes, which makes it a really good vehicle if you're looking to save long term, for retirement or something like that, or short term for a major expense, or just to save.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you offered to do your presentation for all the DACs and all the stakeholders that are out there that might be affected and could benefit from this program. So that's really super helpful. The presentation slides, again, I guess, is that something that you could share with us as well?
Yes, I can. If the easiest thing, I can send it to you if you want to shoot it out to
Yeah.
folks.
If you could do that so I can make that available. So thank you again for showing up. Do we have any other questions for Thomas Martin with CalABLE? Well, everybody's thanking you for the information that you presented. And with that, I'm going to, again, express my gratitude for the information and your presence here, and have yourself a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thanks.